Good evening, everyone. Welcome to February's Monday Night Workshop. Hello, all of you who showed up here, and hello to everybody on Facebook. Good day today. Patriots lost. Eagles won in the Super Bowl, for any of you who watched that. So it was the one football game I was actually able to watch this year. I didn't watch the whole thing, but anyway. Want to just take a moment and mention the upcoming dates for Omega. It's March 23rd to the 25th is the next Omega 1, and I believe you could start registering on that. Correct, Mark?
Yes. You
could start registering on that on the website, or just go to the website is the best way to do that.
There's already people have been registering for quite a while.
People have already been registering. It's been a while since we've been in training. We've done a training, but because we're renting rooms here at the Franciscan, it's hard for us to get into the schedule with them as well. So just grateful that we're able to have one up and coming. Last week, I want to thank everybody who watched the video of the interview. We hit like a 557, I think was the last time I saw views. So that was nice. Spread it out. It's a great way to introduce people to Omega. That was one of our reasons for doing it. I'm contemplating doing another kind of interview on the Wednesday up. But I was thinking about interviewing people who use the Omega teachings in their work, in their life. So I don't know, I'm still toying with that idea. But tonight's topic is uniting the divide. I've been thinking about different types of topics that we could do and things that are prevalent with what's happening, not only in our society, but with us as human beings, I would say. There's a quote that says, "United we stand, divided we fall." And I was really surprised when I found out that it was Aesop who came up with that. That's an ancient Greek storyteller. And he's the one who came up with that philosophy. I'm really surprised. I've heard it all my life. United we stand, divided we fall. We used to play games on the beach. Growing up on the beach, I learned how to swim on the beach. I didn't grow up on the beach, but I went to learn to swim at the beach. And we used to have this game called Red Rover, Red Rover. Has anybody played this game? It's a horrible game. You stand there holding hands, and there's a line maybe 30 feet between you, and then there's another group with holding hands, and you call one person over, and that person has to run as hard as they can and try to break through your hands. Well, I would get bruises all the time, but, that was the big thing, to try to hold together. That the united we stand, divided we fall. So I looked at it, and Aesop actually has two fables that he uses to describe this philosophy. The first one is the 4 oxen and the lion. I'm not going to read it, but it generally states that there were 4 oxen in this field, and every time the lion would come, the oxen would turn so their tails would be together, and therefore, whatever angle the lion went, he always had horns. So all 4 of them were protecting each other. And then came a time when they were arguing, and so fed up with each other, they went into their separate corners, and then of course we know what happened. The lion took down one at a time. And then he clearly states, united we stand, divided we fall. Then his second one is called the bundle of sticks. And I've heard this, George has actually used this in the classroom, where there was a father who had sons that were constantly arguing. So the father came in with a bundle of sticks, and he handed the sticks to the son and said, break it. And no matter what they could do, they couldn't break the bundle of sticks. But if they pulled the sticks separately, it was easily snapped. Just like that, boom, you could snap it. I will quote this one. He said, "My sons, if you are one of mind and unite to assist each other, you will be as this bundle, uninjured by all the attempts of your enemies. But if you are divided among yourselves, you will be broken as easily as these sticks." Great picture, great concept. So I know that they're easy to understand. It makes sense. The more people, the stronger. They even say it with prayer. When 3 or more are gathered in my name, it makes it stronger. So the stronger, the more united, the more stronger we become. However, if we look at history, it's amazing to me, if you look throughout history, how many wars have been fought on this planet. Since the recorded history of time, there hasn't been war. It's always been a war. People are always fighting over something. And maybe not country to country, family members, or even as simple as feuds, families that feud, and people can't remember why they're feuding, just the Hatfields and McCoys, we just don't like each other, and no one seems to remember why. So it's something that we deal with. So then it made me think about another term, which I'm certain many people are familiar with, divide and conquer. This is not only a strategy in the war, but it's a strategy in businesses. It could be a strategy in families, actually. Divide and conquer. When you divide, you conquer. And it really has the intention of disconnecting people and conquering people, and can possibly cause harm, is what I'm assuming it comes down to. So it's clearly with the tactic to destroy the opponent. So divide and conquer is another phrase that I have often heard with united we stand, divided we fall. I wanted to take a look at the definitions of unite and divide. Most of us know that when united versus divided. But I went to Webster's to look up the definition of unite. It says come or bring together for a common purpose or action, and then also come or bring together to form a unit or whole, especially in a political context. So I'm not going to touch that. But I want to go back to the first one where it says to come together for a whole. Now, we all understand that, but a great example of what's going on right now. All of the women who are coming together, united for the sexual misconducts that have been happening to them through years, not just Hollywood. I find the most upsetting one is Larry Nassar, the Olympic doctor. Girls, children, 13 years old and older, sexually abused. It's something like over 256 girls. That's mind-boggling to me. And I read an article about it, how one of the girls said the reason why she didn't come forward at first because he had such a way about it, normalizing it, like no big deal. He would molest them. Mother was sitting right there. Friends are in the room. He was just so good at making it look like it's just normal that it just confused the girls, and they didn't realize what was actually happening until many years later. But anyway, all of them coming together, uniting, has made a stronger voice. And then, of course, obviously people are being held accountable for their actions. Of course, we did see the attempt to divide and conquer in the last election that we had. And pretty much ever since, the political parties have been constantly feuding, attempting to divide and conquer. I was thinking about this when I was watching the when I was watching the Super Bowl last night. It didn't seem to be about dividing and conquering. It really was about taking risks. If anything, when I watched the Eagles, their coach did some amazing things. He took them at one time, it was in the second quarter, towards the end of the second quarter. They're on the 1 yard line, and they just need to score, and they're fourth down. If they don't get in, that's it. They lose. And they did the most amazing thing. They went for it instead of a field goal. But the quarterback took himself and put himself on the line. And then the center pitched the ball, not to the guy that was standing there. Another guy came running behind. He grabs the ball and throws it to the quarterback, and he scores. It was phenomenal. So taking risks is what I really saw last night, as opposed to dividing and conquering. If you think about Michael Jordan, remember him when he played for the Chicago Bulls? He was phenomenal in not divide and conquer. He was about being a better player. How many more scores can we do? How much more can we increase our feel up and down, our endurance? As a matter of fact, most people don't realize, but Michael Jordan's #1 record is not for buckets. It was for assists. And it was almost like twice as many for assists. So he assisted other people so that they can score and made them be a better team. So that's a good contrast to divide and conquer or play together. Then I'm going to go to the word divide. Now, it is either a verb or a noun. So a verb is separate or be separated into parts. The second one is to disagree or cause to disagree. So I can intentionally antagonize someone to get them to be agitated. And then as a noun, it says a wide divergence between two groups, typically producing tension or hostility. And so then I thought about this because it said the word divergence. Has anybody seen the series, the Divergent series? Yeah. That's great. I mean, not great, but it's 5 factions. And they divided the city into 5 factions. And if you were in this faction or family, that is all you did. So it was the, I'm not going to remember them. One of them were the peacekeepers, one of the lawmakers, one of them were the people who grew all the food. Another one was the protectors and servants. I think that's what the 5 of them were. And you weren't allowed to cross. And then, of course, in the movie, the violence came because there was friction and upset, I'm assuming because of the dividing of the groups. One group wanted more power and didn't have it, and so on and so forth. So that made me think about that movie. That was funny. Now, I know it's not a hard concept to understand, uniting the divide, but I do want to take a moment and talk about puzzles. Does anybody here like to do puzzles? I love puzzles. I love puzzles ever since I was a little girl. The actual puzzle that you put together and try to figure it out. So imagine if you had a puzzle with the pieces that were all just white. If you would, there was a little puzzle back here. It's a large puzzle back here. All the pieces are white. So if you have a white puzzle, it's a little difficult to figure out which goes where. Now I've assembled some of the puzzle already, but let's say that I have these individual pieces and they don't make sense. They're just white, and there's one strange one here, here's another one. And even though these are similar, this one's a little thicker than that one, and this one's a little longer. So there's differences. That's a smaller head over there. So there's differences in these, and yet I have these pieces. And let's say I want to work together, unity, and I could try to get these to fit, but they don't. And you know what's going to end up happening is I'm going to use every piece, and if I can't get them to fit, because remember, I'm just looking at white. There's nothing to give me guidance here. So I can get easily frustrated. I'm certain you understand this when you can't make it work, and then you try to force the ones to make it work. If you've ever done that, I have broken a couple of pieces because you try to force them and you do the fist thing and that doesn't seem to work. And then you're like, oh, I guess that doesn't go there. So we can have all these little pieces with no comprehension of how they work together. And we try everything that we try, and then we say, forget it, it's too hard. And we put it down and they stay separate. When it comes to this, we actually settle for being divided. Forget it, I can't work on it, it's too hard. Just leave it, be divided. In order for us to actually work on the puzzle, which most people understand this, there's a very simple thing. You have to look at the whole picture. So there's an actual picture, metaphorically as well, a whole complete picture. When you see the complete picture, then we have guidance. We have some understanding. Oh, we know this goes here, and oh, I could look at this piece and figure out, oh, that's the gentleman over here by Scotland. So I can actually figure it out once I have the whole picture. So the puzzle that's behind me, I'm going to actually attempt to flip it over without busting it. Did my best to do this. Oh, I didn't. Woohoo! Almost. Now, when I see the whole picture, then I just hit puberty picture. So when I see the whole picture, then I can easily take the piece and say, this looks like it goes on this guy right here, which it does. And I can find the connections. When I see the whole picture, I find the connections. It's almost quite easy because I can see it and relate to things. Oh, I've never tried to do this yet. Oh. That's the wrong piece. It's going in the wrong way. But see, even with that, I can recognize, oh, wait, that doesn't work, and I turn it around. Turn it around, something like looking at it from a different point of view. So I see it with a different set of eyes. I've said this before in the past. Dr. Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Well, the same as guys' pants and hands here. And then, of course, what ends up happening is, if this truly was on a flat surface. Are we not on anymore?
No, you're back
okay,
on.
Good. So that's a good example of what's required. We have to see the whole picture and then work to fit it. Work to make it fit. So sometimes it doesn't just come naturally. Now I know that some of you say, well, that's great. We can make a puzzle fit. We can understand that. But what about people? How do I make people who especially don't seem to fit? People who are opposite of each other, let's say. How do I get them to fit together like that? Because that's very pretty. That's idealistic and a good goal to have. But, that's not what happened on our planet today. Nobody's singing Kumbaya all together. Woo! That's not what we have. We have a lot more division on our planet. So it's a great question to ask. How do I get people to fit who don't seem to fit? Before I answer that, I'm going to introduce you to fractions. Everybody knows what fractions are, right? I'm the first person to say I'm not a numbers person. It took me a very long time to figure out fractions. I just did not get it, but I'm going to attempt to do this here. So a fraction is a part of the whole, just like the pieces are a part of the whole. I believe there's 48 pieces. So each piece that I held in my hand was 1/48. That's actually too hard. So I'm going to just move this over for a second and do a fraction. So let's say I have a circle and I cut it in half. That obviously is 1/2. If I do another line, then I have, now this is 1/4 because it's 1/4 of the whole. That's what fractions mean. Really simple and very easy to understand if I do it as a chart. But once you add the numbers, that throws me off. So with fractions, it's easy to add fractions as long as the bottom number is the same. So if I do 1/2 plus 1/2, that equals a whole. We get that 1/2 and 1/2 equals a whole because you add them together, the 1 and the 1 equals 2. The bottom number never changes. This is called the numerator, and this is the denominator. You know you're going to get a math lesson today, right? So the numerator and the denominator. Denominator never changes. The numerator is the only thing that changes in addition. That's easy to understand. Now, let's test ourselves here. If we happen to have fractions that are different, like let's say we have 1/2 plus 3/4. What do we do? 1/2 plus 3/4. This is where I go, Mark, because I don't want to figure that out. Honey, can you do this for me? That's what I would say. But if I'm going to work on this, what you have to do, remember the denominators, you have to have them even. It's called a common denominator. I'll come back to it in a second. But in math, we use it as a common denominator. The way you find a common denominator is you find out what do these both go into. Well, this isn't easy. A 2 goes into a 4, and of course a 4 goes into a 4, so that's an easy thing to do. So in order for me to add these up, the first thing I have to do is multiply this by 2. I'm going to just move my world. I was going to be funny and said I just rocked my world, but that was stupid. So 2 times 2. So what I'm going to come up with is 2/4 plus 3/4 equals 5/4, which of course is 1 1/4. I can understand that. Okay, perfect. Not a problem. But because people aren't as easily understandable as that, I want to give us something else. I need to take this. So it's 3/8 plus 5/6. If I were to see that anywhere, I walk away. If I had to buy some, I wouldn't even try. Not even worth my. But I figured that we'll try this. So again, you look for the common denominator. What does that mean? What do both 8 and 6 go into? Okay, I can understand that. So an 8 times 8 is, 8 times 2 is 16. That's not a 6. 8 times 3 is 24. Yeah, a 6 goes into a 24 as well. Okay, that's great. So if 8 goes into 24 3 times, that means I have to, I think I did this wrong last time. So it's 3 times 3/8. Okay, ready? I told you my math is not good. So 9/24, because that's the common denominator. And then 6 goes into 24. 4 times, thanks guys. They're in the audience going like this. So 6 goes into 24, so that's times 4. So this comes to 20/24. That means that I add
24.
Thank you. That I add 9/24 plus 20/24, which equals 29/24. Do not ask me what that means. It's just 29/24. I'm going to say it's 1 if this is right, it's 1 in 5/24. Is that right? That would, yeah. I still don't know what that means, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, 1 in 5/24.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, we're united with you.
So, I wanted to show this one because it's complicated. Because it's a perfect illustration of what happens when we try to find the common denominator with people that appear not to have a common denominator with us. Can I erase this? Because this is going to scare me. I'm going to turn around and go, wait, what? Or I actually should have made it a picture of that to prove that I did math. I did complicated math. Was that complicated? Can I say yes?
For me, yes. For him,
all right, whatever. An engineer is not. I just need to put my people back up for a second. Yeah, I'd rather do people than pictures. One moment. I just lost Russia and Spain. Okay. The world falls. There. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. All right, so common denominator. Easy to have or figure it out with the fractions now. So back to our question. How do we fit people together who clearly do not fit? Naturally, I'm going to say you'll look for the common denominator. But what does that mean? I mean, what do you mean by looking for the common denominator? So I'm just going to draw your attention to the past 6 months of our weather. The last 6 months of our weather, we've had devastating hurricanes, one right after the other. We've had fires. We've had mudslides. In the last 6 months, we've had devastation. California was burned northern and southern. Houston was flooded out. Puerto Rico still isn't. There's parts of Puerto Rico that are still not without electricity. Or they have no electricity, excuse me. So, when there's devastations, like I said, we've had devastating hurricanes, the mudslides and fires. Yet, in every tragedy, we witness and we see strangers uniting to help each other. Strangers just uniting to help each other. I always find it very beautiful when I watch this. And it's everything from showing up on scene, where people actually drove to Houston to help, or went to California to help, or donating blood, or others provided food and shelter, like if their house was still open, hey, come on down. I know when Hurricane Sandy hit New York, a lot of people didn't have even water to take showers, so neighbors were like, come on in, take a shower here. Strangers, which is, in that case, neighbors, people coming together to offer their assistance. There was a football player, J.J. Watts, in Houston. He plays for the Houston Texans, I believe, is what they're called now. He was so moved by the flood, he said he wanted to raise $200,000. On his own, he was going to try to raise $200,000. Do you know how much he ended up raising? $37 million. $37 million. One person said, I want to raise $200,000, and it just took off like wildfire, and he raised $37 million for the people of Houston. We watched, at least I did, I'd watch during the storms, reporters put their microphones down and go help people rescuing, which I was so happy. Because here I am as a reporter standing there, and there's people over here struggling and drowning, but let me keep talking about it. It was so nice to say, let me go help. So I saw that several times where reporters put their microphones down and went and helped. Because it was more important not to tip the boat than to watch the boat being tipped on. Hey, I got that on camera. And then we have, this one is going to make me cry if I say this. Montecito. The Montecito mudslides. I just made up a word, sluds. The Montecito mudslides, devastation. You know, they just had the fires. Here comes the rain. Mudslides. Well, there was a gentleman who at 3 o'clock in the morning, after the mud went through his house, climbed on top of his roof and went to go look for neighbors, to check on the neighbors. Now, this is all in the dark because the electric is gone. 3 o'clock in the morning. As he's climbing over debris, he hears a baby crying. He follows the sound and goes to that child, digs 4 feet down in the debris in the mud, and finds a baby girl and saves her. The firemen were like, 15 minutes later, she would have been dead. Like, where do you find? He didn't even know who the kid was. Could have been just downstream somewhere, came from somewhere. Anyway, heroes, as I said, show up in times of devastation. At one time, there were over 8,500 firefighters fighting the fires in just Southern California alone, from all across the country. It wasn't just Californian firefighters. So there's something about a catastrophe that draws people together. Why is it that we come together united when there's suffering? We come together when people are struggling. We see it. Why is it that we come together for that? Why can't we come together when there's celebrations or happiness and good times? Most of the time we come together because of catastrophes. And I had this idea a while ago, that the catastrophes, it's funny that we call them catastrophes because what they really are growing opportunities. Every time we have a catastrophe, we have an opportunity to rise up and be the best human being that I can be. When we look at these people who go in there and help other individuals, there's nobody who's saying, well, I don't know, I don't like that skin color. Or, oh no, your political preference, no, I'm not going to help you. Or what religion do you practice? Nobody does that. You jump in and you save. That's what you do. It seems like in a catastrophe, it reminds us of what's really important. And I've met several people who've lost everything they had, and they usually say the very same thing. When everything's gone, the thing you find the most gratitude for is that you're alive, that your loved ones survived. The other stuff is just material. So I have the idea that the same thing is true for us as human beings. It's not about the skin or the religious or the sexual orientation or the political preference. In catastrophes, our common denominator is human beings. It's our common denominator. It's what we all boil down to, a human being. A human being who's suffering. A human being who's lost. A human being who needs help. They say that the statistics are, I forgot the statistics, but they say that people are kinder to children and animals than they are to actual adults, human beings. There's something about the innocence or the helplessness of a child or an animal that draws the greatness out of us where we want to protect. We just instantly protect. But when it comes to another human being, let them figure. And we kind of keep our distance, unless it's a catastrophe. Then we join in. As I said, there's been so many opportunities in the last 6 months for us to see human beings being our brilliance. So, many songwriters have written and performed identical themes. John Denver, of course, we use this in the classroom. It's about time, where we talk about our commonalities. And we recognize that no matter what part of the planet you are on, if this planet blows up, we all die. So it doesn't matter if you just try to eliminate here. You can't. It's all going to go. So when we recognize our humanity, what we realize is that we need each other to survive. And as it says, I'm just going to put this down. As it says in the song, I'm spending too much time on my puzzle. As it says in the song, there's a man who is my brother. I just don't know his name. But I know his home and family because I know we feel the same. It hurts me when he's hungry and when his children cry because I too am a father. That little one is mine. Which I think is beautiful. That's the idea of connecting below the sea level, below the surface, below what we see in our exteriors. We recognize that there's something below that we have as a common denominator. So this is where the work begins. When I recognize that I am just a fraction of the human race, I literally am a fraction of the human race. I don't know how many billions of people are on the planet. Let's say 8 billion. I am 1/8 billion. That's a fraction. That's fairly insignificant. 1/8 billion, 1 of an 8 billion, I guess. Is that how you would say it? Sure. So that's an insignificant fraction. But then if you think about all of the life on the planet, like the cells in the universe and the stars, I mean, that even makes it even smaller. Like I'm just 1/8 of a billion on a planet, which is 1 of a trillion. I mean, if we look at that insignificance, it's amazing. Why we have such arrogance then? I truly am so insignificant, but I walk around like I'm the most important person on the planet. Well, I am, but you're walk around like you're the most, I'm kidding. We all walk around like we're the most important people. There's something, maybe it's the insecurity of knowing that there's so much more out there besides me. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one. So, of course, looking back at the puzzle, which I knocked down already, it's the big picture. I have to look for the big picture. That's the clue. I look for the big pictures. When it comes to my commonality, the common denominator with another human being, I look for the big picture. So if I look at the big picture of humanity, what would our commonality be? So what would be some of the things that we all search for? Well, of course, almost everyone searches for love. I haven't met anyone who doesn't really care about loving people. So we search for love. Then another one that we search for is to be accepted. We want to feel like we belong, that we're part of the crowd. That's why peer pressure is so manipulative, because we just want to be accepted. And then, of course, to be of value. The idea is that we want to be of value. And as a matter of fact, the surveys say that that's the #1 motivation for people in the workforce, is to feel of value. If they stop feeling of value, then they stop producing to the top quality of their capabilities. So again, to be accepted, to be loved, and to be of value. Now, what does that boil down to? Here's where the hard work comes. Just like us trying to find the common denominator between 3/8 and 5/6 or something, we have to find the common denominator, so it's going to be hard. It's not going to just pop to us just like that. It takes practice. We have to work at it. That's why George used to call this the work, because it's practice. Constantly thinking, all right, how does this work? How does this work? So, common denominator. That means that anyone who stands in front of me, I have to be willing to accept them. Anyone who stands in front of me, I'm willing to accept them. It doesn't mean I need to agree with them. I just simply accept them. Here's where we struggle. If we think disagreement, I eliminate you. I disagree with you, gone forever. Okay, but that's not peaceful. And most of the time when we try to eliminate someone, they never really leave our lives, because we keep it alive by constantly talking about it. That person, what they did, blah, blah, and we keep it alive. If we truly did eliminate somebody, we wouldn't think about them anymore at all. It would be gone. So I don't think we have the capacity to eliminate, just like we can't eliminate part of the planet. It's all of us or none. So it means that I have to accept each person. I accept that they're walking their own path, and that they have their own destiny, their own plan, their own lesson to learn. Think about this. I've said this. I love this. Is one of my favorite things that I say. If you think about the planet, the billions of footsteps that have graced the surface of this planet, billions, there never has been, nor there ever will be, another you. That's how unique your combination is of who you are. Never has been, never will be. Billions of people. Therefore, we can say that the uniqueness that I have is because there never has been anybody like me. Not really our differences, the uniqueness about me. So there never has been, nor there ever will be another me. Then I find it extremely humorous that we get upset because people don't think the way we want them to think, or they don't act the way we want them to act, or do the things that we want them to do. It's funny that we do that, because there never will. Because there never has been, nor there ever will be another you. So we spend so much time and energy complaining and processing, going to counseling and going to Omega and trying to fix our relationships, when really the key is quite simple. Acceptance. I say simple, but it's not. Think about the person that caused you the greatest anger, the greatest upset, if you have that in the past, or even someone now. The idea is that you'd be able to find value in him or her, that you'd be able to find value in what they're doing, that there is a lesson to be learned, to remember to look at the whole picture. If I just look at one little piece, I may not understand what's actually going on. If I look just at this little piece, I may not understand what's actually happening, but there's a whole dynamic unfolding. Karma, for those of you who believe in karma, so it's not just from the past or the present, but things that have happened before I even got here. That's all transcending. And for me to just take one little piece and say, this is it, that's so limiting. And that's division. It's separatism. What we want to do is unite ourselves. So I find value in what they do. Each person has their own lesson. Now, here's another one. It means I have to love everyone who comes in front of me. Love everyone who comes in front of me. We are capable of loving every person. Who prevents me from not loving people? Me. Who prevents you from not loving people? You. If you really want to embrace humanity, you must embrace all of humanity, not just the ones you like, not the ones that are your favorites, like your grandchildren or your children or your spouses. Oh, I love them, but ooh, no, not those people over there. Oof. No, love everyone. That is a task in itself. Many great teachers have talked about this, from Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha. Love everyone. Our capacity is to love, so we have to love everyone. So when it comes to loving, one of the things that we can do is recognize they're people just like me. They have pain just like I do. They experience loss just like I do. Joy just like I do. Hurt, disappointment, sorrow just like I do. When I find those common denominators, then it makes it easy for me to love people. Typically when we first meet people, we're on guard, or we do the, what is it that they call that, pigeonholing? We put them in a pigeonhole. Oh, this is a person. Ahmad, he's an engineer. He goes here. Brainiac. Like we pigeonhole people. Pierre, he goes over here. Mark, I can't do that. He's my husband. He doesn't go in a pigeonhole. But that's what we do. We plug people into different things and say, how does this fit? What does this go? Oh, he's wearing that little thing on his, oh, he's got to be one of those, he's got crystals on, he's a new age geek. Like we might do those things. We might, even when people find out what your name is, the story is, oh, yeah, what were you smoking when you picked that one? Really, we get that kind of judgment. Did I actually say that? Sorry. Edit. But that's what happens. We do that quick little judgment and that's it. We've lost our commonality because we instantly divided. We find the differences and make it like my difference is better than your difference, which is destructive. It really is destructive. So we find love for everyone. We all have the capacity to love people, so we have the capacity to love whoever stands before us. I'm trying to think of a great story. China invaded Tibet and imprisoned a lot of the monks, and one monk was imprisoned, I'm going to get this wrong, it's either 1 year or 3 years, I can't remember the amount of time he was in prison. But upon his release, the Dalai Lama asked for an audience with him. So the monk came and sat, and they were talking, and the Dalai Lama said to him, did you ever experience fear? And the monk sat there for a second and contemplated, and then he looked up and he said, yes, once. The Dalai Lama, I'm paraphrasing, I wasn't there, but he said, please explain. And the monk said, there was one time I was afraid I was going to lose my compassion. That is high-level living. Can you imagine finding love and compassion for the people who are torturing you? But that's the goal. You never hold anything against anyone because it's all for who knows what, the purpose, but it's the little pieces that go together that make us humanity of who we are. So finding the love for everyone, that means that I can connect with them on every level, and there truly would be no room for hate. Really, no room for hate. I could get upset and angry, but no room for hate. Hate is so destructive and violent. I can disagree with you, but I don't have to hate you for it. I can agree to disagree. Hey, we just disagree. Have you ever found yourself in disagreements that start to escalate, and then before you know it, emotion starts getting involved, and then you start taking shots at the people that you really don't mean, but you start attacking them that have nothing to do with the actual disagreement, but it just starts escalating. That's because we start taking things personal. We get upset and agitated. My ego kicks in. How dare you? Don't you know who I am? I can't tell you how many people have said that to me. Don't you know who you're talking to? No, I actually don't, but okay. Apparently you're famous or important, but we take it so personal. My experience says people have taken it so personal, and that's what causes the reaction. They take it personal. And then love anybody. I said love anybody, excuse me. And then finally, look for the value. This is my favorite attitude. I love this concept, looking for the value. I talk about this all the time in Omega. No matter what happens to me, there is value. No matter what, there is value. Great little book. One of my favorite phrases in this book says, I am the author of every next moment. No matter what happens to me, I choose how I'm going to respond. I'm in control of my thoughts, my behavior, and my actions. Therefore, if I am in control of my thoughts, my behaviors, and actions, why would I not choose love? Why would I not choose compassion, understanding, acceptance? Why would I not choose finding the value? Those are good questions to ask yourself. If I truly am in control of everything that I do and say, why would I choose something other than what I know to be true? It's difficult to do. It is. I understand it. But that's a good question to ask yourself, to contemplate and meditate. One of the things I love is the end of the day, reviewing your day and figuring out why you went one way or the other. I think that's a great thing to help us to review our actions, to prepare us for the next time that we actually come into the same type of situation. Oh, I've done this before. It didn't work that way. I think I'll try it a different way today. Something as simple as that. So it comes to finding the value, love, and accepting. You know, when I think about pain, a lot of people say, oh, but it's too hard, it hurts. When it comes to warm fuzzies, oh, we love people with warm fuzzies. Oh, we get all, look how cute she is, puppies, and, you know, the internet is filled with funny little videos of animals and kids, and yay, warm fuzzies, that's great, it feels great. But then when we see people that we don't like, I don't want to say this because this is, we unfriend them, which is fine because you may not want to read people, but, you know, we just delete. Maybe that's what it is. We get so used to the social media that we could just delete, that we unfriend. We don't realize we're actually doing it in real life. I don't know. That might be a connection. I just thought of that. But anyway, we go back to the pain. We have a tendency to embrace warm fuzzies and we want to ignore and get rid of the pain. That seems to be opposite. The pain tells me something's wrong. The pain tells me there's a growth happening. For those of you who have children and your children went through the growth spurts, how many times do we hear my legs hurt, my arms hurt, my back is killing me? It's because their muscles and bones are actually growing and it's painful. That's a great experience. Well, not while you're going through it, but it is a good experience or an understanding of what pain means, that it's growth. Growth is happening. If we learn to embrace our pain, we no longer see it as a bad or horrible event. It's just another event that happens. This too shall pass. That's another phrase that has come often when it comes to pain. So each time that I understand that I have the opportunity to choose love, acceptance, and finding value, and I don't, that means I did not succeed at my task. So I'm creating more tears in the puzzle. Each time I unite, I'm bonding. So if we were to look at this as my world, you have your world, each of you has your own world here, and we all have little tears in them. Can you imagine what it would be like if I'm trying to unite with somebody who's already divided? I'm divided and you're divided. Then how would we find the whole complete picture if we're both divided? That's something to consider as well. Most of the time, when I think about this, I have to learn that it's called the work. That's what George used to call it, the work. So when I'm presented with a person whom I feel, I'm just using this, extremely distasteful. Let's say I run into somebody that I think, oh God, what is wrong with that person? What I have to do is stop and ask myself, why? Why am I thinking that? I could just think love, acceptance, finding value. But I mostly get agitated. Now, I know for me, and I'm just going to speak for me, menopausal, I don't have the tolerance. There are times when I want to rip somebody's head off, and I get surprised because that's not me, but I know there's imbalances in the body. I totally understand that. So I'm not speaking on those times. I'm talking about the time when you meet somebody and you instantly dislike them because they're saying something that you don't like, or they're doing something that you don't like they're doing, or they're posting something that you don't agree with, or they're slashing or slandering or just being violent, and then you get upset. And that's what I'm talking about, when you let people get under your skin. Why we do this, I do not know. I don't have an answer for that one. But I do know we don't have to choose it. We can stop and choose something differently. Quite easily, we could stop and choose something differently. As I said, mentioning taking the things personal, and arrogance gets into it. Remember I said the idea of that, you know, in history of humanity, there's never going to be someone the way I want to do it. Well, that's why we get upset too, because you're not doing it the way I want you to. You're not saying it the way I want you to say it. You're not acting the way I want you to act. It's all focused on me. If I would remove myself and look at what's going on for you, perhaps maybe I'd have a little bit more understanding of what's actually occurring for you. One thing I know is that when I strive to find the value in others, they actually begin to find value. When I strive to find the value in others, they actually feel valuable. Whenever you express value to another human being, they feel valuable. And the dynamic is beautiful. What they end up doing is they want more of that, so they want to be more valuable to you. So they're more available. Trust level increases, but this has to be genuine. You don't do this just because you want to get a 40-hour, like a 60-hour work week out of somebody. You do it because you truly do find value in it. To use it as a manipulation is to taint it, that isn't going to work. It's got to be genuine. So when you genuinely express value to somebody, gratitude, when you express that, wow, I'm really grateful that you came into this, you really have made a contribution. When we do that, people, it's like a light switch goes on and they all of a sudden feel that moment of value. I remember one time I was having this conversation with George, and we were discussing this about a gentleman that we had passed in the front of a store. Raggedy old guy looking for money, and you know how the judgment is all about that. And we were discussing it, and he said, can you imagine what it would do for him if somebody walked up to him and said, thank you for being here? It would surprise him, because nobody would say that. Most of the time they don't even look at you or pay attention. But if you walked up and said, thank you for being here, not so much like I'm careful how to say this, but you know, Jesus loves you and embrace you, but the actual you are valuable. Not to discount that, but not to go to the automatic of Jesus love you, but actually look and connect in someone's eyes and say, you have value. Thank you for being here. I wonder what that would do. And I remember that conversation because I thought, I don't know if I'd have the courage to do that. I don't know if I'd have the courage to walk up to a homeless man and say, you have value. And just, I think I've never done it. But I remember it stuck in the back of my head. I never thought of that. I never thought of saying to somebody, a homeless person standing there on the side, saying you have value. But they do. I mean, now I do. But I remember, that's why it stuck in my head, that story of when we had that conversation. George was like, you have no idea the impact that you make on people. Every person you interact with is an opportunity. Every person you interact with is an opportunity to be the best human being that we can be. And if every person is an opportunity, that means it's my opportunity, or I can give people opportunity to be the best person they could be around me as well. It's very reciprocal. So uniting the divide is an inside job. When we feel value for others, when we feel love for others, when we feel acceptance of others, it's all from within. When we feel division, that's also from within. So it's an inside job. The division exists within me. Gandhi has a great quote. Everybody knows this one. Be the change you wish to see in the world. That's a beautiful quote. And George used to say this, if you want to stop the war on the planet, you have to stop the war that's inside of yourself first. So I have to stop the internal war before I can stop the external war. So, as I said, Gandhi said, you must be the change in the world that you wish to be, that you wish to see, excuse me. When it comes to finding the value and uniting the divide, there's so many opportunities to do this. If you're courageous enough, you could start with the political field. I have no desire to do that. I just think it's great. Life will bring it to us. Life's going to bring it to us so we understand every opportunity, no matter who's in front of me. When you're driving on the road, all those wonderful drivers who love to drive 15, 20 miles over the speed limit, I can find value in them. The people who are asking constantly for money, you know, when you go online and then you always get the ad after that, always constantly. I can find value. Somebody had a job by doing that. When your computer gets hacked, find value. I have a chance to renew everything. So everything can be an opportunity to find value. I like to default on the idea of finding value. But remember, it's us. The biggest thing is to come back and see the whole picture. If I forget the whole picture, it's very easy for me to get focused on this little tiny dot and forget everything else. It's essential that I must remember that I am a fraction of humanity. I'm a fraction of the soul. I'm a fraction of everything that exists on this planet. And yet, I'm an equal fraction to everything that exists on this planet. So it's my job to work on uniting everything together, if that's what you desire. It's my job, I see it as my job to unite instead of divide. If you think about this, when a family is united, there's flow and peace and happiness. When there's an upset, conflict, there's no flow, there's no peace, there's no happiness. People avoid each other, you avoid different topics and conversations, but when everyone's getting along, it's like a flow that is unnatural. It just flows right through. You don't even have to work at it. It's effortless. That's the kind of life I would love to have, where everything just flows. Unfortunately, I have a mind that stops that from flowing. My mind goes, oh, what about this? And what about that? And look at this and look at that. And so I have to remember to bring myself back and look at the big picture. Again, I'm just going to say this. I'm a big proponent of meditating. Meditating is one of the quickest ways that I can recenter myself and remind myself of what I wish to do. Instead of staying in those moments and divide, take a moment and just connect and find it from the whole. So that's all I had for you this evening. Thank you so much for coming down, and thank you for connecting on Facebook. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring my hand all the way up there. I look forward to seeing you in March, which I do not have a topic for, but I will post it as soon as I do. Thank you. Have a good evening.